While poor pasture conditions began earlier in the Panhandle than in most parts of the state, pastures in the eastern half are now starting to reach their limits. We talked with Rick Rasby this week about options for cattle producers, including early weaning of calves.
Well, I think early weaning is an option. The idea there is to take some pressure off the grass by removing the calf. And, that calf that's weighing, 300 pounds, he's eating, I would say, somewhere close to 5 pounds of dry matter per head per day. And so you can actually early wean and free up maybe enough grass, and you can maybe take a look at maintaining or at least not having to maybe cull any cows.
Yeah, and in some parts of the state, unfortunately, there might not be an option. You might have to do that culling. So if you're going to cull, which ones are you looking at?
To me, that is really the most difficult thing producers have to think about. The reason is that they've taken so much time to build the genetics in their cow herd, and now they have a set of genetics that actually fit their resources that they have. And so culling cows is really kind of taking the factory away, and so you really got to kind of think about that. But what I'd have producers think about is, if there were any cows that were identified as being, they were going to cull, identified at calving time, but they were kind of cull at weaning time, those might be the cows you might select first to take a look at culling.
How do you find that magic number of cows to go? Because not only could you look at this year, but you could also say, well, I'm worried about next year and how dry it could be then as well.
Well, I think the thing that we ought to think about is just getting by this year right now, and they can, the thing that we're thinking about right now is how can you get from now, at least in eastern Nebraska, to corn stalks. And so if you do have to destock, maybe looking at those cows that you were going to cull anyway. The other thing that you might not have to early wean all the calves from all the cows. Maybe you could select from young cows or maybe older cows to wean the calves from. The other thing is I think now's the time that you can really use individual cow records. And what I'm thinking about there, if you have to cull cows, if you would go back to maybe the last 2 or 3 years worth of records and maybe identify cows that were in the bottom third or the bottom 25% in 2 of those 3 years, those may be cows that are telling you that, I'm not quite fitting your resources the way you manage. And those might be cows that you think about culling, or at least that would be maybe the first set of cows that you might think about culling.
They draw the short sticks.
They draw the short sticks, yes they do. But I think you can go in there and logically kind of think about how you might do that sequentially and maybe keep really the productive cows in your herd intact.
For people that aren't familiar with what you were talking about, the genetics of it, how far can this set you back if you have to cull cows?
Well, the thing is that we really have a lot of information on how we can change genetics now. With EPDs and that kind of thing, we can ramp that back up fairly quickly. But the idea is that a cow has a calf once a year, and the gestation length is so long is that you really can't make genetic change really fast. And so really over a time period you've built that genetics, and that's really the challenge I think when you think about culling cows.
From your experience, this drought and what pastures look like now, at least in the eastern part of the state, how does it compare?
Well, 2002, I can remember that, and it was pretty dry there. I think the thing that's different about this drought compared to droughts in the past is that how widespread it is that there's a lot of Nebraska and a lot of bordering states that are being challenged by the lack of moisture. And so I think the thing about this year is, as compared to other years, is just how widespread it really is.